Hi guys, may I ask if there is a single mom here? If you are a single mom, what are the difficulties you have to deal with in your life? Have you ever had a moment when you just wanted to end it all in some way, or even end your very life because things are just too difficult to cope alone? I'm Vivian, a single 40-year-old mother of 2 young sons. Steve is 12 years old, and Edward is 7 years old. About a year ago, I was hospitalized with severe depression when facing difficulties after losing my husband and had to take care of 2 children by myself. My husband passed away 3 years ago in a labor accident at the factory where he worked. A very large part of me believes that it was a suicide rather than an accident because he asked his colleagues to leave the scene just 15 minutes before a gas leak accident happened in the factory and killed my beloved husband. I fully believe that my beloved husband committed suicide because he was too helpless at the condition of our young son, Edward. Because taking care of him takes too much time and money. To tell the truth, there were times when I was angry and hated my husband for leaving me with a family burden of 2 small children. But above all, I loved and missed my husband immensely. When I was pregnant with Edward, the doctors said that the boy was likely to have Down syndrome at birth. We have the right to decide to handle the pregnancy right away to avoid future consequences, because we have to cope with abnormal behaviors that can cause troubles for the life of the child and for us too. But at that time, I loved my unborn son too much and still hoped in fate, so I decided to keep the baby. But fate did not smile at us. Edward was born with a rare disorder with no cure or improvement. Edward does not have any awareness of the world around him. His eyes are always uncertain in one position, looking extremely silly and blank. He did not react to any kind of noise, impact, or physical pain. Maybe he did feel something sometimes, but there was no way he could show it. He does not have any emotions or expressions. He has to be fed by a tube and couldn't breathe without the assistance of a machine. Edward must wear a diaper all the time and will wear the diaper forever as long as he is alive. He never lets out a sound, didn't cry when he was a child, and showed no signs of trying to communicate. If he likes or dislikes anything, nobody can know. Even when he was attacked and suffered from physical pain, which I will tell you guys later, he cannot utter a single sound to call for help. Despite being the mother of an incompetent child like Edward, strangely, I'm not sad because of my imperfect child. I have my way of feeling towards what has happened. How can I explain it? It's not the sadness of loss, disappointment, or anything like that. It's all about hatred. I feel like I'm taking responsibility or consequences for my previous wrongdoing. I did not love Edward at all. He has no personality and nothing about him is worth loving. I have to pay for the stupid decisions of my stubbornness to not listen to the doctor and deliberately giving birth to the boy instead. The price I've paid since Edward was born is that I have to spend 200% of my time and energy on him. He has too many major health problems besides being abnormal, such as a respiratory crisis, an autonomic nervous system that doesn't work properly. There is one character left behind in my family in the story of Edward. That is our eldest son, Steve, who suffered in life too because of his sick little brother. Steve's medical care was delayed and sometimes ignored because Edward was enough of a headache to us that we didn't have the time or money to take care of Steve in the best way. Steve was born healthy, but lacks the necessary attention from his parents, so he is often sick and has to take care of himself. He could not do a lot of things he wanted to do, like playing sports or hanging out with friends after school, like any other kids, because he had to look after his younger brother. Steve's face is always full of deep inhibition and anger, all of which I can easily recognize, even though he never says anything. However, I was also heartless when I had never asked my poor son what kind of negative emotions he had to face. Steve has been remarkably silent ever since Edward was born. I know Steve is sad to be ignored, but maybe I've never been well aware of his anger until one day. It was after my husband passed away, and I was feeling extremely melancholy after my depression treatment ended. While I was sitting in the living room, I heard a rather loud noise constantly coming from Edward's room. I wearily climbed all the stairs to his room to check, exasperatedly thinking that he had forgotten how to breathe again and broke the machine in his room. But what I found was surprising. My eldest son, Steve, was hitting Edward and shouting softly in his throat as if he wanted no one to hear what he said. "Why don't I have a mother? Why did I lose my father? You are the reason why I have no friends. I never expected you to be in this world. When will you die, bastard?" And with every single question, a punch from Steve landed on Edward's body. I guess if you guys were in my situation at that very moment, all of you will be shocked and hurry to intervene, right? This is what parents should do when their children get into a fight with each other, especially when one is disabled like Edward. I fully understand that basic knowledge. But instead of being horrified, I just stood there watching, everything from the beginning to the end, with no reaction, no sign of pain, fear, or sadness. I don't know how many times Steve has done such actions, but sometimes I did find some bruises on Edward's body. But I just simply thought that he fell from his chair or something like that. Turns out this is what's happened behind the whole time. Edward ruined the life of my oldest son. My poor 12-year-old Steve was overlooked by his parents and suffered a lack of care. Poor boy. He lost his father, and he must be at the same level of pain as I lost my husband. At that moment, I didn't feel pitiful for Edward at all. In my mind, I was only thinking negatively about the unlucky things that he brought to his family. I have studied how to nurture children with Downs, thinking that love and effort will help me overcome all obstacles. I had prepared myself for the worst scenarios before Edward was born, but I guess I never expected him to be this dumb and helpless. I was wrong in thinking that love can conquer them all. After all, I just realized that I could get used to physical disability, but being that intellectually disabled to do nothing but lay still and cause all the bad consequences, I couldn't deal with. This little boy was not a gift the stork had delivered to me. It was a genetic mistake that I could have avoided if I had miscarried him 7 years ago, or had been less stupid to decide to end everything as soon as the doctor said he would be abnormal like this. If I had been wiser, my husband wouldn't have committed suicide. Edward himself killed my husband. From that moment on, I decided that Steve would be my priority from now on. He is my truly normal and loving son, while that malignant tumor, Edward, being punched on the floor over there, would become another person's problem. Whoever they are, I don't care, and I won't spend any more time fussing about Edward's future. I do not care if his future home or foster parents are going to give him sufficient care and love. At least those people will be paid a salary to take care of the boy. Money will solve that. I'm willing to go to work harder, even more money to make the potato rolling on the floor disappear from my life. And so Edward left our home to be sent to an orphanage a few days ago. Of course, he could not walk by himself. I also did not care to drive him there because I wanted to avoid being judged. I called the service at his adoption to take Edward out of our sight. I felt excited and relieved, but soon I felt guilty. Why guilty? Not because I regretted my inhumane decision, but because I knew my son and I would be happier when that unconscious 7-year-old boy disappeared. It is wrong, I know, but I'm really happy. I want to never have to worry about him again. I felt like depression or any other illness I had before now completely disappeared by the time Edward was taken away. I also see a faint smile on Steve's face. Guys, please don't rush to judge the actions of others when you're not in their shoes. Think about what you would do if you were in my situation. I don't mean what you think people should do, but what you would really do if you were me. Because seriously, raising a child with Down syndrome is not simple by any means. You can call me any disgusting name you can think of. I still want to hear from you in the comments section, but I will never regret my decision.